you, Brian. Last, hopefully not least, the Netherlands, not the first country you would think of if you think on wildfires. Windmills, yes. Wooden shoes, definitely. Tulips, maybe. Wildfires, no, but we have them. Let's look at the size of the problem. The Netherlands only 41,500 square kilometers big, 2 times the size of New Jersey, but 16.7 million people living in that country. Places us on the 28th place of countries in the world with the most amount of people living in it, and we're one of the smallest. 400 people living on every square kilometer, and 600,000 hectares of wildland area, of which is 95% wildland urban interface. So our WUI can't grow anymore because it's there. Intensity and size of fires last 6 to 7 years. We saw an increase in size, intensity, and for the first time in maybe 40 years, evacuations were necessary. What not much people know is that we didn't have extreme dry years during those fire events. So the intensity grows, the size, the fires become larger, but we had no extreme dry years yet. Makes me wonder what's going to happen if we do have an extreme dry year. Awareness of our people. Civilians, our civilians think wildfires, they happen in the world. America, the Mediterranean, I've heard some fires going on in Russia, but the Netherlands, no, we don't have wildfires. Our foresters, they think leaving logging slash in the forest is good for biodiversity. It's also good for fuel for wildfires, and the fire department will come in and put that fire out, although they don't really like that because we destroy more than the fire can do. Fire department think that they are able to fight that fire, but I can give you a couple of stories of fires. For example, the fire of the picture in the low right corner. The fire was maybe 40-50 meters away from a city which had around 40,000 people living in it, and that city was placed in the middle of that wildland area. And maybe 15 minutes before the fire reached that town, it started to rain, just downpouring rain, and the fire department said, you see, we have fought that fire, we put it out, but it wasn't the fire department. And to be honest, it's more a rule than it is rare that the fire department says they fought the fire, but they actually didn't. And the government thinks, as long as we don't see any smoke, it's not our problem. Although the last couple of years, if you have to evacuate the same town maybe 2-3 times in the same amount of years, government will start working on it. National policy. We have some national policy on wildfires. Most of that is based on prevention. We don't want fire in a forest. But next to that, landowners of wildland areas have to have a lot of documents how they are going to manage that piece of forest or grassland or header field. But it's not mandatory for those plans to have anything that's linked to wildfire in them. So let me rephrase that. If we are going to do something in our forests, what is it going to do for the wildfire risk? Don't have to be in there. What's going to happen if we have a wildfire in our area? Nothing in there. Next to that, pre-scarred burns are only done by maybe 2-3 wildland managers and only done 5 by 5 meter plots. And that is actually a law in my country that you're not allowed to do larger plots than that, except if you ask permission from the government, and it takes a lot of time before they give you that permission. And in some areas, because of our prevention methods and the suppression, which we are not really good in, but we can do it sometimes, in some areas there hasn't been a fire going through that in over 100 years. And if you keep cutting down branches on trees and leave them into the forest and there's no fire going through that gives a lot of fuel load. How do we do our suppression? Fires are fought like house fires. We use the same equipment, we use the same training, we use the same gear, and we only have limited special equipment. For that, we only use our fire departments. Foresters are not involved in that. What you have seen in the awareness part, they think, let's call the fire department and they will come in. Because we didn't had any large fires going on the past 40 years, the expertise and experience is very low. All the firefighters who know how to fight a wildfire are retired by now. So firefighters who saw 2 pieces of grass burn think they know what a wildfire is and they know how to put it out. Air support, we have to rely on our Air Force for that, but we don't like that very much because only the request of the air support can take up to 4 hours. And then the helicopter that we are gonna get isn't even airborne yet. So, not very good. Fire weather, also an issue we don't use. If a fire truck is going out, they only ask, well, what's the weather right now, and not what the weather gonna be in an hour or maybe 2, so not good. Risk management. Well, some enlightened or maybe frightened, I think the last one because it's frightening in some areas, are leading the way in our wildfire efforts. Evacuations plans are being made for some areas, but they are based on, well, risk assessments without the proper field maps. People are not informed about the wildfire risks, but we have a wildfire thermometer. That's what our government is really happy about, but if you see that map below there, the green area is low danger, that's for the fire, well, the fire danger at that time. Green is for low danger and red stands for very high danger. In a country the same 2 times the size of New Jersey, all those different kind of colors doesn't seem right. So, and the fire department bases their response on that. So on the green areas, maybe 1 or 2 fire trucks will go to the fire, and in the red areas, 4 to 8 fire trucks will respond. That's pretty weird if you're living on the other side of the border from the red and the green area, because you think, all right, it's a high fire danger, and you only get 1 fire truck to fight that fire. It doesn't work.